Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, I know, there's so many different variables to the whole thing, but,
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Field Nation Expert Series webinar. We're so excited that you've joined us today. Really excited to have Ted Shirk here today to present to you about project planning strategies. This is going to be just fundamental to your growth as companies, and just really excited to jump in today. We'll let people pop in and we'll go ahead and get started. Ted, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Abby.
Just want to set the bar here. We're going to go ahead and get started with this presentation about the project planning strategies. And then at the end, we'll have time for question and answer for Ted to speak into the questions that you have. So as this progresses, feel free to pop questions into the question and answer at the bottom bar of your Zoom. And again, we will have some time at the end to dive into those questions.
All righty. Thank you and welcome. Is my screen visible, Abby? Thank you. All right, welcome. My name is Ted Shirk. As Abby mentioned, I'm a solutions engineer here at Field Nation. And what I do ultimately is I help our customers be successful users of the Field Nation platform. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about all of the features and tools that are related to the Field Nation platform surrounding projects. The ability to create that work efficiently, manage it effectively, and report upon it when it's complete. So you've won a project. It is a point of sale receipt printer refresh at a large retailer with sites in the Midwest of the United States. So we're going to go over the tools that can help you get that work done, organized and efficiently. So the first thing we're doing, of course, we're taking a look at our platform Flightboard with all of the work that I currently have in my demonstration account. And we're going to start with, who are we doing that work for? Well, you're going to be doing that work for one of your clients. So under the Manage tab, we can go to our clients and understand I have pre-populated a lot of this data so you do not have to watch me type. Trust me, it's painful and I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not a bad speller, just a bad typer. So I have my client list in front of us, and I can simply choose a particular client that I've already created, or in the event that I do need to create a client, I can go ahead and go to the upper right of the screen and create that client. Again, I have pre-populated some of this. Given the title of my client is Belco, we simply select the client manager. In this case, it's going to be myself. The rest of the information on this screen is completely optional for your use and your use only, because of course the providers on the platform never see this information. This is used internally for you to organize your work. You can add their website and logo, some notes. You get to decide if there are work orders to be printed. Do you want to have your company's name and logo on those documents, or the client's name on those documents? If they have any default policies and procedures, standard instructions, and again, of course, their information. Once we've created the client, we've got to create the project. So to create that project, we can go to our project list again. If I've already created, again, I've pre-populated. I can simply add a project. Add that project. I have a point of sale refresh for my client, Belco. Again, I simply choose my client, which is going to be Belco. I name a project manager who will be associated with all of these work orders. Choose a cancellation fee, minimum of $30. Secondary account owner is completely optional. This is for Field Nation's use in the event we should need to contact someone about the work. Choose a default selection rule, the means by which you are going to choose the providers that are going to accomplish the work, if you would like that specific to this project. decide if we're going to use auto dispatch for this work, ultimately letting the platform decide which provider is assigned to the work based on the selection rule criteria that you chose. It's not the platform deciding, it's you choosing based on the criteria of that selection rule. There is an additional late notification should the unfortunately provider be late to an assignment. There's an additional notification for that. Thus, we've created our project. We have all of the information. Ultimately, it comes back to it looks like its own flight board. You have your own flight board for all of the work orders associated with this given project. So again, you can effectively manage those work orders. Now that we've created the project, we need to take a look at the next step is, of course, creating the template. Well, before we create the template, we talked about the selection rule, the means by which we are going to select the providers that we want to do the work. FieldNation offers you a default ranking rule, which includes the items that talk about a provider's work experience, behavior on the platform, as well as some trait criteria that talk about things like how close are they to the work order physically. Things like, do they have an updated background check? And are they a member of a selected group of technicians that you've chosen called a talent pool? Now, I've created a selection rule for this particular project that involves many of these criteria. Selection rules can have both required as well as optional information and requirements to them. In this case, we want a specific number of work orders in the type of work to match, making sure that they've done those. So the more work that they've completed, the higher their score will be. Are they in a talent pool of mine? Do they have a minimum star rating? What is their cancellation rate? What is their block rate? Particular skills that they have work orders in, how far are they from the work order, and if in fact they've completed any work orders for my company. Well, now it's time to create the template, the base information on the work orders. And again, I've pre-populated some of this information. Again, template is that base information. It's a part of every work order that leaves only the site-specific variables to be determined. Things like the location, the pay rate, the schedule. So we name our template. In this case, I called it our POS printer refresh based on our Midwest sites. I choose my client, which in this case happens to be Belco. Project. Thus, what we're creating here is a hierarchical structure for all of these work orders. The work orders are attached to the template's attached to the project's attached to the client's, of course, attached to your account. Now we start entering all of that base information about the work orders. Make this template the default for the project. What type of work are we going to be doing? What's our service type? What's the equipment that's required? All of the things that you would normally create in any template, again, that is a base particular information. Once we get done with creating that template, we have a completed template that we can look at, decide if there are things that we need to edit. We give the work order a title. I have titled the work order POS printer refresh, multiple units per location. We can see our client information as well as our project name. And again, remembering that, of course, providers never see this information that is your client or your project. That is for your use and your use only. We've got all the information for the type of work, a particular skill that is involved, all of the qualifications and equipment required, service description, including redacted items, as service description items are fully visible to the marketplace providers unless redacted. If it is redacted, it will show up like this, darkened, and only the assigned provider will have access to that information. Documents, we've attached a manual to help the providers out should they have any technical questions along the way, make sure that they understand what is required and how they would be able to do something should they run into any difficult. Our specific list of tasks, photographs, phone calls, signatures, even a couple of them that include notifications. So as a buyer, you would be notified when the provider completes the given task. Then we have something called custom fields. Custom fields are those unique identifiers specific to the work orders in this project. For example, the number of devices to be replaced. This is going to vary per location. At one particular location, we may have two, another one we may have four, a third one we may have three. So we want to attach that particular information to each individual work order so that the provider understands how many units they will be replacing on a given site. Then we can have items that are absolutely specific to your entire organization. It's things like region. Your business is divided into regions. Which region will we be in fact completing the work at? Will it be in our Midwest region, our Northern region, our Southern region, Eastern, etc.? And if you use an internal ticket number, something from an external accounting system, for example, you add that to each individual work order, thus allowing you to filter, sort, and report on all of these particular items of data. And at the end of the project, you can even understand that we originally had 147 printers to replace. Sum the math from the report, we replaced all 147 of them. As well as provider entered custom fields, allowing the provider to give you information on what happened on the site. If in fact there may be a serial number that you may need to turn into your end client, or a manufacturer for warranty registration, or as simple as successful completion. Were you able to, Mr. or Mrs. Provider, successfully complete this work order or not? Is there a revisit required? And even potentially a contingent custom field on that revisit, meaning why do we need to revisit? Printers weren't on site, the manager wasn't around, and wouldn't let us take care of the issue, all of those things. So now we've created our client, we've created our project, our template with our custom fields. So now what's next? So how do we get the work orders to the platform, and what other information and tools does Field Nation have available for us to assist us? Well, what we're going to need is we're going to need a site list from our end client. Where are we going to do the work? And once we get that site list, we're able to do a number of things with that site list. It's going to help us in Market Smart Insights to be able to help us understand the pricing as well as coverage, provider coverage in the area. How many providers are available? How much should this work cost me per site, per individual site, as well as an aggregate across the work orders. Plus, we're going to use that site list to help us create all of the work orders in a few clicks using the mass upload feature. So let's start with a site list, as we're going to take a look at Market Smart Insights. And so taking a look at Market Smart Insights, and we'll back up here just a second. Coming into Market Smart Insights, we choose our skill categories. In this case, that's point of sale. Where is the work to take place? Well, we've got a specific site list. So having a specific site list, we have the ability to import that site list. If I choose import that site list, asking you to name that file, that site list, and attach a particular file. Field Nation includes a template for you to help you understand what information exactly we're looking for so that you can get that information into the platform. And here is an example of that template filled in with our 20 sites that we will be doing work at. Simply a site name, municipality, city, and a postal code. Canadian postal codes will work. This Field Nation does work in Canada as well. So we call it a postal code, not necessarily a zip code, as we call it here in the US. So that information has that available and ready. So what we simply do is we choose our site list feature, our site list option, select a site list. And again, I have preloaded the Belco POS refresh site list. And we are given a map. So what we see on our map is our sites. I'm going to turn off the provider layer. And the green dots indicate the sites where the work is to take place. And we can see that they are all in the upper Midwest. If I turn the providers layer back on, I can see where the providers are. And the header bar is telling us that we've got 895 providers who have accomplished 7,694 work orders at an average pay rate of $57.29 for the work in that area. Now, work in that area that matches the current filter set, and that current filter set is point of sale. Now, first question I know you're asking is, Ted, why are these folks showing up down here in Southern California and Arizona? Well, the reason that they're showing up is they, in fact, did accomplish a work order that matches the filter set, meaning point of sale, within 60 miles of one of these sites. Possibly picked up a work order while they were home visiting mom for her birthday. Or providers do move. So if this particular provider here in Arizona used to live in the Chicago metro area, recently moved out west, they're going to show up in this list. So now that we've got the providers who are in the area, we know the average price rate, what we're going to do is we're going to export that information. So when we export that information, we are given a CSV file again, and I have pre-populated this. The CSV file is telling us postal code, the city, the number of experienced providers who have accomplished work in that area, median travel distance, and most importantly, the average hourly rate for the work in that vicinity. So in Greenwood, Indiana, the average rate is $56.46. I see a low price rate here of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, of $52.71. I see a high price rate here of Sterling Heights, Michigan, of $62.17. Now, understand, take a look at this number of providers. Remember, Ted said that there was 895 of them. This number adds up to be significantly more than 895. There's an overlap. So a provider may have accomplished a work order that fits within the 60 miles of Greenwood, Indiana, but they also accomplished a work order that sits within 60 miles of Indianapolis, Indiana. So they're being counted multiple times as a number of providers. Again, the most important numbers here are the average hourly rates. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, and we're going to use this for the next portion of what we do in creating our project. So now that we have the pricing information, we know what the coverage is, we've got suitable and substantial coverage in the area to be able to get the work accomplished. We're going to go back to our platform. We're going to take a look at our project. So here we are back in our project, our POS refresh for Belco. Our clients is listed as Belco. The template we're choosing is our POS refresh. We know where we're getting the funds from. We know who our manager is. Now it's time to upload the spreadsheet. So it's time to upload the spreadsheet. We're going to grab the spreadsheet. We're using our template. That is our POS printer refresh, Midwest sites. We're going to choose a file that we're going to use as our mass upload. Well, Field Nation offers you an example Excel spreadsheet to guide you through the process of what information do we need as part of that upload. And again, I've pre-populated this information. There's an explanation column on the left-hand side that indicates that the gray fields are optional with a drop-down. The pink fields are required. The white fields are optional. So we've got our address fields, address, city, state, postal code, and country, our location name. Again, calling that out as a specific item. These are retailers. Our schedule type, because if you remember, when we created our template, we did not put a schedule for those work orders. This work order schedule is at an individual work order level. So we're going to have this work completed between specific hours, somewhere between 10:02 and 10:06 of this year, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So we've got our scheduled start date, our scheduled start time, end date, and end time. We've got our per hour pay rate, and simply paste the information from our MSI spreadsheet into those individual columns as they came through in the same order. The maximum hours or devices, if we were using to pay by device type, in this case, we're going to be paying by the maximum number of hours based on the number of units that they will be replacing. The approximate hours to complete each of those work orders, again, based on the number of devices. Some of these columns are blank because they're already included in our template. Now we've got our custom fields. Remember our custom fields, which region? Well, each of these, of course, are in the Midwest region. We've got an external ticketing number attached to each work order and the number of devices. So ultimately, what's happening here is each one of these rows is a work order. And we're going to be able to create these work orders with just a couple of simple clicks of the mouse. We don't have specific multiple templates because we can even do this with multiple templates. If we had a template that was calling out for printer devices, we had one that was calling out for self-checkouts. We could actually create the work orders using different templates at the same time with the same upload. Can even attach a specific provider. Provider Ted is in that area. We would love for them to do the work order. We're going to route them the work order from this area. Bundling the work orders if we want, if we're using integration, other items, or we get it from the template. So if I return to the platform and I choose my file that we're going to upload, we're going to ask it to import and continue building our work orders. So now what we're left with and what it brings us to is a mapping page. So ultimately what this is doing is deciding, do we want to take the information from the template that we've created, or do we want the information to come from that spreadsheet that we built with the address information? So what we're going to be taking a look at is, starting with the first row here that says title, it's the title of the work order. We're going to take that from the project template. But before we do that, I see potentially a small issue up here. It says that one of the fields from your file could not be automatically mapped. That is ticket number. And if we remember, that's a custom field. So we're going to keep that in the back of our brain as we continue to look through these items. So we got our project type of work as part of the template, our service type as part of the template, our manager is part of the template, but our location fields, our address, our city, state, postal code, and country are all part of our CSV file. So that's where we're getting the information from when we create these work orders. Our schedule fields, again, we're getting that information from our CSV file. Same as our pay types, and you can see the individual pay types. What you see on the left hand is just a couple of examples, not all of the data, but just a couple of the examples. The approximate hours to complete, again, 3 was not the particular number for all of them. Same as within our custom fields, the number of printers to replace and our region. Now, remember, we had a custom field that said ticket number. Why do I not see that? Well, up above, we saw that ticket number didn't map. Oh, I see why. Because on my template and my custom field created, I called it ticket number sign. Well, this does not mean that we have to start over. We're going to simply click the CSV file and choose ticket number. And now it's based on the column heading from the spreadsheet, not necessarily what was in the template. And we have that information now added to the work order. Thus, again, saving you the time from starting over. Any of the remainder of the information, and this was not part of these work orders, we simply go and now we're going to create the work orders. Takes a couple of minutes to get through these work orders. There's 20 of them. I know the screen says 19. There happens to be a current bug where it's counting the first and second row. It used to count just the title row, but there'll be 20 of them when it gets through. So as it's creating this is creating the individual work orders. And when it's finished, these work orders will always be in the draft status. Now, remember I said that you could route a particular work order to a particular provider. A routed work order can still have its drafted status, routed to a particular provider, but it's not published to the marketplace. When it also comes in is these work orders will always be attached to an import ID. These came in together, and we give them an ID that they came in together, which is a column that you can add to your Flipeboard, be able to filter to that particular import ID and see all the work orders. So I've got import 120958. Simply view the work orders. And there are my work orders. All of them individually with individual work order numbers, individual locations. The title is there, the pay rate is there, the schedule is there. We can see that the pay rates vary across the board as we grab them from the spreadsheet. Who is our manager? Who is our client? All of the information, including ticket number. And now we would go on as we would with every other work order, publishing it to the marketplace, etc. Because again, we are in the project right now. It's showing us that leads. We can select all of them, publish them to the marketplace. Or we talked about auto dispatch. So if we wanted to auto dispatch them, and what auto dispatch is all about, and again, because I have preset this up within the project, we're telling the platform that we want these work orders to be published and assigned to the most qualified request. How do we want that done? We want that done via using our selection rule that we created that talks about the provider's work history, behavior on the platform, as well as some traits. We want that work to be out there for a period of a day. Once that work order has been out on the platform for a period of 24 hours, what the platform does in the background, it is analyzing each of the requests that have come in. So if we've got 20 requests that have come in, it's taking a look, is making sure that, all right, which ones of these 20 meet the minimum criteria? They've completed the right number of work orders on the platform, the minimum number of work orders on the platform that we stated in our selection rule. They are within so many miles of the work order, which we've stated in our selection rule. They have a minimum star rating, which we've selected in our selection rule. All of those who meet the criteria and are ultimately grouped together. And from there, now we're going to look at, let's say there was 5 of them. And of those 5, which one of those 5 has the highest score? Because we used optional criteria as well. So the more work that a provider has put in the area of point of sale, the more points that they earn. The additional higher star rating, additional points given if they're a 5-star provider, additional points if they're less than 10 miles from the work order, those types of things. Now we've got 1, that is our highest score. They meet the minimum criteria. And then the final caveat to the auto dispatch is that have not counter offered the work order. Big one there. We're looking for someone who meets our criteria, highest score, and has not counter offered the work order. If provider Ted meets those 3 criteria, provider Ted would be assigned to the work order, thus saving you the time and energy of pushing the button, because you've decided what the qualifications are. I need providers to have this, and this. They do. They meet my criteria. They're assigned. Now, if you are a Premier user, you have the ability to do a multi-tiered auto dispatch, which we could create a second selection rule and slightly reduce our standards if we want to push the distance out, maybe, for example, and do this for a second day. And the beauty of the tiered auto dispatch is if at the end of the second day, because at the end of day 1, we didn't have anybody who met all the criteria, highest score, and didn't counteroffer. Second day, it starts back up at the first level. We're still looking for the best. So we could ultimately auto dispatch this work, get this work to the platform. And then finally, once the project has been complete, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to report on that information. Simply go to the Insights, Work Activity, brings us to our work order activity report. And we can get all of the information that we want to get about this project. Belco, POS refresh, managers, this person, the work orders that are in the created status, and then all of the information about them. Now, at the created status, I understand the usefulness of the knowledge about pricing, et cetera, may not in fact be there. But under the reporting page, there's all kinds of information that you can garner towards the end of the project. For example, assuming it was not auto-dispatched and you did have to accept a counter offer or 2, you can take a look at what was the pay when created versus the pay when paid. What was our total payments? Were there any expenses that we had not considered? Maybe there was, I do remember a work order being in downtown Indianapolis. Maybe there was some parking there. Maybe we had a provider that we really wanted to do the work and they had to travel a little bit. So we were willing to pay them a few dollars to travel to get to that work order. So again, track your budgets, track your work, even things like track your number of requests. How many folks requested this work along the way? That's a lot, Ted. How do I get through all of that? How do I ever remember all of that? Well, A, it's recorded, but B, Abby and myself are available to help you create these projects, whether it's 20 sites or the largest one that I've heard of was 76,000 sites. Obviously, they didn't all take place at the same day, but anywhere and everywhere in between. All of these features are available to you. The mass uploading is a wonderful feature, saving you that time if you've been using the copy function. Mass upload to create those work orders all at the same time. And if something went awry, and we look at our flight board for that project, we add a filter for that project. We've got our 20 work orders. I can mass edit them. Change things like who the work order manager, that manager, Ted guy left us. So we need to choose a new manager. Dispatcher Delbert will now be in charge and it will update all of the work orders in that group. Not everything is mass updatable, but there are lots of features and functions around mass updating that are available to you. Abby, do we have any questions from the field?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ted. Let's find out if we have any questions. If you guys all want to just pop questions into the question and answer, then we will be able to go over those. And if it's a question that doesn't really pertain to this specific subject matter, then I'll reach out to you personally and be happy to answer those questions. So again, as your company is scaling, your processes have to scale also. You have to streamline. You can't do things in a manual way. So I think that Ted did a phenomenal job of really explaining how that can happen on a project level. So thank you so much for that, Ted. I know this was super helpful to all of our buyers as they're hopefully ramping up and winning new projects. We want to help them streamline things. So again, pop any questions into the question and answer, and we can answer those. But honestly, Ted, I think you checked all the boxes and answered things and reminded me of things that maybe I had forgotten about. So really thankful that we have this opportunity to make things easier so we can work smarter, not harder when we're on these big projects. All right, I don't see any questions, so we'll give it a few more seconds if anyone else wants to ask a question. Otherwise, I will say we will record this, or it has been recorded. We will send out the recording to you all, and we so appreciate your time. I also want to point out one more thing, and that is next month, September 28th, we will have another expert webinar series, and we are going to be having a thought leader come on and share more about the industry, how to win projects, how to really optimize your use of the platform. So that specific topic will be upcoming, but plan next month, September 28th at 11 a.m. Central Time. We look forward to having you all back. And I don't see any questions specific to this, Ted, so we will let our, yeah, go ahead.
If you are being shy about your questions, feel free to email Abby those questions. I'm sure that you have her contact information, and if you don't, you will, as the webinar will be sent to you via email.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just email us at webinars@fieldnation.com. Let's see. Oh, we may have a question here before we hop out.
Sure.
Okay, so the question is there a way to see the last active status of a provider in the portal? sometimes when we try to communicate with a provider, they never reply. So the reason they're asking is they want to make sure that they're using texts that are actually active on the platform.
Absolutely, there is.
Great question. And I'll let you
Mhm.
share your screen. There you go.
You. Can you see my screen, Abby?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I've got a work order that I'm taking a look at here. It just happens to be in the draft status. It's in Boston, Massachusetts. If I go to my providers list, excuse me, I was searching for a specific provider, doing some testing yesterday, last time I was in this work order. But I've got my nearby providers for this particular work order. And actually, one of the columns that you can add to your provider page by using the view columns, you can select which of those you want to see. And last active is actually one of the options, and I leave it open on mine all the time. So I have a last active column on every work order that I'm taking a look at when I look at my provider page. And this is telling me when they last logged into the platform, not necessarily when they did their last work order, but I also have a column up right next to it that is next work order. I'm not necessarily concerned that Caesar here isn't doing work for 12 days. Maybe he's going on holiday over the Labor Day weekend and visiting Europe for a few days. I don't know, whatever. But I know that he's doing work on the platform. Simply that he has another work order scheduled is information. So yes, you can absolutely see when they were last active on the platform and when their next work order is by simply adding those columns on your provider page.
Perfect. It's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, if we don't have any other questions, we will let everyone get back to their day. Please know that you have your customer success managers, but if there were other questions that were asked that we didn't get to, we'll reach out to you personally to answer those questions. But we appreciate your time. The recording will be up on our YouTube page, and we will email that out as well. And we look forward to seeing you all back next month, September 28th, 11 a.m. Central. Hope you all have a great day. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Abby.